अज्ञानतिमरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जना शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय। वाञ्छ कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। असाधु साधुतादायिन् अतिनीचुच्युताकरा खानामुञ्जा कदाचिन्मां प्रेम्णा हितकण्ठयो स्फुरः। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Okay, so let's get started. So take out your notepads, electronic notepads, and tell me which chapter from Bhagavatam are we going to read today? According to our schedule, which chapter are we doing? Yeah, and I'm looking for answers here. Any answers? No answers? Any guesses? And okay, now that's Hindi. I can't figure that one out. All right, let's see. We have Sadhana Mataji, Shukarupa, Khyati, Simi, Vindyavali, Varshana, and Sukumal Radhe Mataji. Fantastic. 108. Okay, that's a chapter 8. So first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8. And actually, we're going to do verse number 16 today. And I'm going to start sharing the screen with you so that we can see that in its full glory. So we had done 15 last Friday. And I'm going to bring up 15 first so that you have the context. And if you can type on your keyboard a yes to convey to me that you can see my screen as I'm sharing it with you. So please let me know. All right, Sukumal Radhe Mataji says that she can see it. And Varshana Mataji said chapter 16. Wow, this is good. Everybody is able to see it. This is certainly my lucky day. So in the 15th verse, last week we had said that, O Shaunaka, so we were talking about Sutta Goswami, and he's talking to Shaunak, who is the son of Bhrigu. Although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwathama was irresistible and without check or counteraction. So we talked about Brahmastra, And we have said that this Brahmas, which was released by Ashwatthama to kill the child in the womb and the only survivor in the Pandu dynasty, so to speak, the next in line to ascend the throne, he tried to kill him by unleashing a Brahmastra. And the peculiarities of the Brahmas, it was such a powerful weapon that it was irresistible. Nobody could resist it, and without any check, nobody could check it, and nobody could counteract that. So it was like, if once it's unleashed, that's it. You cannot counteract that weapon with any other weapon. So he had to really use the last weapon in his armory to take revenge on the Pandava family. Okay, so that was what we did last time, and but such a powerful Brahmas was actually neutralized and foiled when it confronted the strength of Vishnu. So such a powerful Brahmas, which nobody could counteract, when it came, it was useless in front of the power of Krishna. And that's why we say one of the 6 opulences of Krishna is that he's all powerful. So it could not stand against the all powerful Almighty. And then continuing on in today's verse, Mamam sthahi etad ascharyan sarvast ascharya achyute ya idam mayaya devaya srijat avati hantya ajaha mamam sthahi etad ascharyan sarvascharya achyute ya idam mayaya devya srijatyavati hantya ajaha. So let's see what are the synonyms here. Ma, do not. Mamsthaha means think. I do not think. He certainly etat, all these. Ascharyan is wonderful. Sarva is all. Ascharmay, in the all mysterious. Achyute, the infallible. Yaha, one who. Idam, this means this creation, where we are. Mayaya, by his energy. Devya, transcendental. Srijati, creates. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati, right? Bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So where he says srijami, it is srijati. Avati, maintains. Hanti is annihilates, and Ajah is unborn. So what's the Sanskrit for annihilating something? Take out your notepads and let me know. The Sanskrit for destroying something. And Priyanka is limbil on her fingers, followed by Varshana Mataji with the right answer. Everybody give me the right answer today. Okay, fantastic. It helps to have the shloka up there, right? Okay, and then there is a name of Krishna which is there in the synonyms. And can you tell me what name of Krishna is there in the synonyms? Which name is there? There you go, Achyuta. And what does Achyuta mean? Infallible. And so the Lord is infallible, but there is a very peculiar, so infallible means one who doesn't fail, right? He's infallible. But there is one peculiar thing with respect to which Krishna is called as infallible. He does not fail in what? Dash, 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 or whatever, as many dashes. So Krishna is called Achyuta because he never fails. He never fails in what? In eating, in killing the demons. What is it he doesn't fail in? Krishna is known as Achyuta because of that. He never fails in. Any guesses? Anybody wants to make some guesses? Krishna never fails to. And we talked about that in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita way back, many, many months ago, when Varshana Mataji was compiling all the names of Krishna as they appeared in chapter 1 with the meanings of all of them. And there it was mentioned that Priyanka is almost close there. It says he never fails in protecting his devotees. Kaunteya pati janehi name bhaktya pranashyati. Okay, so never fails to protect his devotees, where we talk about him as infallible. Now, if something is wonderful, what would you say in Sanskrit? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, Ascharyam, it says, and yes, in the context of our verse, Ascharyam is nice and Adbhutam is also nice, but Ascharyam is what I was looking for. Okay, so then what is transcendental? Divya, all right, Divya is transcendental. And then I also wanted to mention one thing over here, and this was Ascharyam. You said wonderful, right? Now, do you remember reading any scripture where this Ascharyam was used a lot? So, where did you, if you recollect, which scripture is that and what is being described in that? Ascharya. Ascharyam is the verse here, Ascharya. All right, Vaishana Mataji says Bhagavad Gita. Very good. And what is being described there? Ascharya. Does anybody remember what is being described in the Bhagavad Gita when they are saying Ascharya? Okay, universal form. Even before that, right in the beginning, in chapter 2. Ascharyavat kaschidinam. Ascharyavat kaschidinam. When Krishna is defining the soul, he says that some people describe him as wonderful, some people see him as wonderful, some people hear about him as wonderful, and some people, even after hearing about him, do not understand what the soul is. Ascharyavat paschati yechedinam, right? Like that. Okay. So here, but the word ascharya and wonderful is being described, used to describe the Lord. And then the Lord, who, although we use the word um, Srijatya, right? So we talked about the word Srijati, right? So here's the Srijati. So he also says that Yada Yada hi dharmasya, when there is a rise in irreligiosity and a decline in religiosity, then I descend. So Srijami is not actually taking birth because Krishna is unborn, like the way we are born. So what is the Sanskrit for unborn? Anybody wants to make any guesses here? Ajaha, very nice. And then later on, when we continue this chapter number 8 of Bhagavad Gita is a very famous chapter. And so, why is it famous? What's the reason? Give me on the notepad, please. Why is chapter 8 of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So we have to know this grantha, right? Because this is nothing but Krishna. There's no difference between Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna's body. Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna's literary incarnation. So, chapter 8 is famous for the chapter that has 8, remember, prayers of Queen Kunti. Exactly right, right? So it's very, very famous. So when we will continue, and after they are coming, few verses down, the prayers of Queen Kunti are going to start, right? And start relishing all these. And then over there, she's again going to talk about Ajaha. And as she's glorifying Krishna, she'll say, Kichidahura jamjatam punya shlokasya kirtaye yado priyasya anvavaye malasya eva chandanam. So he's saying, Kechid ahu ajam jatam. Ajam jatam means the one who is unborn. The one who is unborn, he is born. He takes birth or appears to take birth, right? So he's the unborn, the original of everything. Sarva karana karanams. He's there all the time. Anadir adir Govinda. So he's there all the time. He's unborn. But Kechid ahur, some people say that the unborn takes birth. Why does he take birth? Purna shlokasya kirtaye, to glorify the devotee. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chaprashkitam. So to glorify and to protect the devotees. Kesidahur aham ajam jatam purna shlokasya kirtaye. So some people say that he comes like because of that. And others say, yadoho priyasya anbhavaye malasya eva chandanam. And he says, and others say that he comes into the Yadu dynasty. Yadu, right? Who is, they are his dear devotees. So he comes into the Priyasya Anbhavaye, they are dear to him. So he comes into the family of the Yadus, families of the Yadus. And what happens? When Krishna is born in the family of the Yadus, the Yadu dynasty becomes a famous dynasty. There's so many other dynasties in the world, but Yadu dynasty becomes very famous. Now you remove Krishna from the Yadu dynasty, nobody cares about the Yadu dynasty. Yadu dynasty is famous because Krishna is born there. But the interesting thing is, and look at the extent to which Krishna will go to glorify his devotees. So the Yadus are his devotees. And they say, oh, Krishna took birth in the Yadu dynasty. Krishna took birth in the famous Yadu dynasty. So it's not because the Yadu dynasty was famous. The Yadu dynasty has become famous because Krishna is born in the Yadu dynasty. And in the end, last line, Kunti Mataji says, Malasya eva Chandanam, just as in Malay. Malay is, the Karnataka region, the old name. So Malasya eva Chandanam. So the Chandan or sandalwood grows in the Malay region of India. Malay Chandan. And so when they talk about Chandan or describe Chandan, like, from where is this sandalwood or Chandan? Where is it from? Kaha ka hai Chandan? Malay ka Chandan. It's a Chandan from Malay, as if it's a big thing to be a Malay. No, Malay is famous because sandalwood grows there. So they remove the sandalwood, Malay has got no glory. So similarly, it's because Krishna comes especially into these families of his devotees, right? Yadu dynasty, he comes there. And then, of course, he was born of Devaki and Vasudev, who are his devotees, and they get glorified for that. So he's Aja, but sometimes the Aja will be unborn, will be born, right? So now, in the translation, Srila Prabhupada is telling us that, O Brahmanas, so which is again, Sutta Goswami is talking to the sages who are assembled in Naimisharanya, and he's telling them that do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. So he's saying, oh Brahmanas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. Okay, so if I'm going to shorten that sentence and I'm going to repeat that and I'll say, O Brahmanas, do not think this to be especially wonderful activity of Krishna. Okay, if I shorten that, O Brahmanas, do not think that this is a especially wonderful activity of Krishna. Okay, everybody got that sentence, the short sentence? He's telling the Brahmanas, the sages in Naimisharanya, that do not think this activity to be just a wonderful activity of Krishna. Okay, if you got that sentence, then please put a yes on the chat window. O Brahmanas, do not think this to be a special activity of, or wonderful activity of Krishna. Do not think this to be a especially wonderful activity of Krishna. Okay, so since you got it, now my next question is, which activity? He's saying, do not think this. So what is this that he's referring to? When he's saying, do not think this to be especially wonderful. So what is he talking about here? Saying, don't think this is a wonderful activity. So what was the activity he's talking about there? I want a little bit more elaborate answer. Give it a try. Give it a try one more time. O Brahmanas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of Krishna. You are there, Barsha Mataji, on Facebook. You're almost there. But I'm looking for a more precise answer. Yes, and Priyanka Mataji got the right answer the second time, and which is causing the Brahmas to fail or to be neutralized, right? So we have to remember the connection between the previous verses. And that's why I did verse number 15 today, so that you get the connection, right? Where we were talking about that here is a Brahmastra that cannot be counteracted by anybody, right? That cannot be stopped. Nothing can be done to that Brahmastra. Once it's unleashed, it's unleashed. But Krishna was able to overcome that. So now here he's saying, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. So don't think this is something very specially wonderful that Krishna has done. And why he's saying that, that this is his way of glorifying it. This is his way of glorifying Krishna. He's saying, oh, Krishna did that. What's the big deal? Because Krishna himself is a wonderful person. Now, when a person is famous, when a person is wonderful, you expect him to do wonderful activities. If he doesn't do any wonderful activity, then there is no point in calling him a famous person. So he is a famous person. So if he was able to counteract the weapon, what's the big deal? Don't think that is a wonderful, because there are so many more wonderful things that he does, right? And then he's saying, then he's following that up by he's saying that by his own transcendental energy, and transcendental in Sanskrit means what? You wrote me just now. Transcendental in Sanskrit means what? Give it to me one more time. Transcendental means Devya. Very nice. So with his own transcendental energy, he creates, maintains, and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. And Sanskrit for unborn is Ajaha, right? Okay. Now, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, the activities of the Lord are always inconceivable to the tiny, tiny brain of the living entities. Nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord, but all his actions are wonderful for us. Nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord, but all his actions are wonderful for us. And thus, he's always beyond the range of our conceivable limits. He's always beyond the range of our conceivable. He's achintya. We cannot think and rake our brains and understand Krishna. You can only understand Krishna through devotional service. So he's saying nothing is impossible for the Supreme Lord, but all his actions are wonderful for us. And thus he's always beyond the range of our conceivable limits, because he says, this is a wonderful thing. I don't understand. When you don't understand things, then they are wonderful, right? If you figure it out, then it's no longer wonderful, right? Like a small child might stand in front of the electrical fan, and he might think it to be the most wonderful thing in the world, because the moment he presses some button, then something starts moving and he starts getting cool air on his face, and then he presses the button again and everything stops like that. So a child might feel that to be very, very wonderful thing, right? I press a button and things happen, things move, doors open, sounds come out and all that, because he doesn't understand how it works. But then you grow up and you become an engineer and you look at the fan and you're like, oh, big deal. I know what's happening, what's going inside there, right? So because Krishna is beyond our range of, conceivable limits that we have of trying to understand Krishna, that's why all his actions are wonderful for us. The Lord is the all-powerful, all-perfect personality of Godhead. The Lord is 100% perfect. So can you tell me how many percent perfect is the Lord? Take out your notepad and tell me how much percentage is he, the Lord? And 100% says Sukumal Radhe Mataji. Anybody else has a different figure from that? 100 says Priyanka. Fantastic. So now he is 100% perfect, means that he has no defects. How many defects do we have? I mean, I have millions of them, but because we are in the material world, how many do we have? 4 main defects, right? 4 main defects, right? So we have the tendency to cheat, illusion, imperfect senses, like that, and tendency to make errors, right? So those are the 4 defects which will be there because we are in the material world. But because Lord Krishna is transcendental, he is 100% perfect, as you responded there. So when we are talking about the Lord is 100%, we are talking about Krishna. Krishna tu Bhagavan Swayam. We are talking about Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. See, he will have all opulences, all power, everything he'll have, right? But then he's saying the Lord is 100% perfect, Prabhupada says, whereas others, namely Narayan, Brahma, Shiva, the demigods, and all other living beings possess only different percentages of such perfection, right? So people, nobody is 100% perfect. You can take any of the demigods there. No one is equal to or greater than him. He is unrivaled. There are no rivals for Krishna, right? No rivals for Krishna at all. Like that. Okay? So, the wonderful thing that we are talking here is that there was a Brahmast, and so there was a little bit of a wonderful act that even Ashwatthama did, and that is that he took a piece of iron, right, must be an arrow made of iron, and he was able to recite mantras on it, and it becomes a nuclear weapon. That itself is a wonderful thing, right? But then Ashwatthama didn't even know how to, retract the earlier weapon, what to talk about this one. So he knows, but he doesn't know everything. He doesn't know how to retract it because it was an irretractable weapon. But God knows that. God knows how to retract even a so-called irretractable weapon. So Krishna is able to do that. Okay? So that's why in this verse, Prabhupada is saying that the Lord is 100% perfect, whereas others, namely, and he lists the demigod, but then he also saying, and all other living entities. So, of course, our Ashwatthama comes in the category of other living entities because he's not a demigod. So, all other living entities might also possess and display some wonderful activities, but they don't have 100% like that, right? So they will only possess a different percentage, 1%, 2%, like that. No one is equal to Krishna. So nobody is going to have 100%, right? He is unrivaled. So there's nobody who can act as a rival to Krishna, because rivalry means we are same. There's some sort of a, understanding that we are at the equal level. So this was one wonderful activity that you saw that Krishna did. And of course, you also mentioned that he retracted that weapon, and that weapon had reached the womb, and he was able to go inside and stop it. And so, of course, the second wonderful activity, which was not called out, so to speak, in this particular verse, but some of you hinted when you gave me the response, you said that he was able to protect the embryo or the fetus in the womb of Uttara. So how do you enter the womb? Right? There's Krishna, and he's able to enter the womb. He will do that for his devotee because he is infallible. He's Achyuta. He will never fail in helping and protecting his devotees. What to talk about Uttara? In her womb is an even greater devotee, Parikshit Maharaj there. And so how does he enter there? So there's a very famous verse in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it talks about that when you are focusing on Krishna, and it's talking about Krishna in the heart, right? As Paramatma, when you're focusing on Krishna, how do you focus, and how am I going to meditate? Like if somebody has not heard about Krishna, doesn't have that cultural momentum that we have of knowing who Krishna is, how he looks like, because of the various pictures or temples, etc., that we visit. But here, if a person is on, the slate is clean, then how do I meditate on him? What should I do? Should I meditate on Krishna in the two-handed form? Should I meditate, if I'm meditating on the Paramatma in my heart, what is the form there, right? So there in the 9th verse, Krishna says, Kavim Puranam Manushashitaram Anonaniyam Samanusmaredya Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. It's a very, very beautiful verse that describes Krishna, Krishna to us. So let's look at that in pieces. Right? So Kavim Puranam. So Kavi means one who is the most intelligent person. Very intelligent person is a Kavi. So Kavim, so he's a Kavi, very intelligent. Puranam means that he is from the beginning, Adi, the oldest, right? So the original Kavi Puranam, Anushashitaram, Anusashan. Anusashan means to bring in discipline. And how is discipline brought? By controlling, right? So teacher brings a discipline in the class by having some rules and of course having that scale in her hand. She shows to the kids and she brings in Anusashan in the school. So Anushashitaram, so he's the controller of this entire universe, which we also read in the verse that we took today, where it said he's the creator, maintainer, and the destroyer. So that's the complete control, right? All the three aspects of creation. So he's saying Anusashitaram, Anor Aniyam Sam. And this is the one that I want you to focus on in the context of what is happening here in Bhagavatam. And this Anor Aniyam Sam. Anor means atom, Anu. So from Anu is Anor, like, Aniyam Sam means it is smaller than an atom. So when you're meditating on Krishna, you imagine that he's smaller than an atom. You have to understand, because that is how, because he's smaller than the atom, he enters into the atom. How big is he? He's as big as Trivikrama. He took 2 steps and he covered the entire universe. So what to talk about, Mahavishnu, who's lying, on the causal ocean, and all these universes are coming out of him. So imagine how big Narayan is. And we have just read that even Narayan is not 100%, in fullness. So what to talk about Krishna and his fullness that is there. So Anon, but the same Krishna, which is so big, can also become so small, Anon Aniyam Sam, smaller than the smallest, smaller than the atom, right? So because Anon Aniyam Sam Anusmaredhya, so in this sequence, right? Anusmaredhya, you repeat and you think about him. Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam. Sarvasya Dhataram means that he is the protector of everybody and the maintainer of everybody. Dhata, Mata Dhata, Pitamaha, right? So Sarvasya, for everybody. Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam. Achintya Rupam means you cannot rake your intellect and think that this is how God is. Somebody has to tell you. Somebody has to tell you that this is what God is. And when they tell you how Krishna looks like, it has to come through the disciplic succession, so that we make sure that, there is no messing up of the message down the line. So Achintya Rupam, Aditya Varnam. So what is the meaning of Aditya? Anybody heard of, a word Aditya? And what does it mean? You want to grab your pad and tell us, what does it mean? Archana says sun. Anybody has other meanings to this? PSYN, I'm assuming it is sun. Adbhutam. Aditya. Aditya Varnam. So Aditya here is referring to the sun. Aditya Varnam. Varnam means color. So Aditya Varnam, he's of the color of the sun, which means he's very dazzling. The sun is very dazzling. So the super soul in your heart is also very dazzling. Right? Anon Aniyam Sam Anusmaredya. Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. Tamasa Parastat. Tamas means ignorance. Parastat, he is beyond the ignorance, which means that he is transcendental, right? And for transcendental, what was the word that we did today in our verse? What was the verse that we did? What was the Sanskrit? Transcendental. Anybody remember? Transcendental. Devya says Bashana Mataji, correct, for 200 points. So transcendental means that. So this is how you will imagine Krishna to be. And the focus for us today in the context of this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam is the quality which says Anor Aniyam Sam, that he is smaller than the atom. And because Krishna can become smaller than an atom, he could enter the womb of Uttara without any surgical procedure, right? Because he can't get, and that is the wonderful thing. Can you become smaller than an atom? Can we become bigger than how much we are right now? Can't, unless we eat a lot, right? So then he does that. So this is the wonderful part of it. So when Krishna comes here, he will be doing a lot of wonderful activities, right? All his Leela is there. And one of the reasons of the Leela, why do you think Krishna has these Leelas? Why does he have to perform all these Leelas? Looking for answers? Okay, so you're saying that to fulfill the desires of the devotee, yeah, to fulfill the desires of the devotee, Krishna comes down, right? He need not do any leela. For example, you'll be just very happy, right? If Krishna just comes in at your door and knocks, right? You won't say, now lift this building for me, or lift an aeroplane for me, and do the Govardhan Leela for me. You'll be just happy, right? You're his devotee, right? But as interact with devotees, to know his opulence, to better understand him, to reciprocate, to enchant his devotees. And I will just elaborate a little bit more on the enchant his devotees part of it. He comes here to enchant everybody, devotees and non-devotees, right? I mean, some are non-devotees, but they are neutral, right? They're not anti-Krishna. So they see some wonderful act and they'll be impressed by it. And because we all like drama, and why do we like drama? Is because Krishna likes drama. And Krishna likes drama. So we are part of him. Mame vancho jiva loke. So we like a little drama. So Krishna brings you and gives you a little drama there. Right? So there's a lot of drama that is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. There are a lot of leelas that Krishna did and lots of pastimes that he did. And at one point in time, he was kind of like, killing a demon every day. Right? So who's the first demon that Krishna kills? So Putana, yeah. So my question, I should have elaborated a little bit more. I was talking about this particular pastime when he has come here 5,000 years ago. So there, the first demoness that he killed was Putana, right? And Putana actually, she came flying. She came when her brother told her to go and kill Krishna, because when Krishna was born and he was lifted from there and shunted off to Nand Maharaja's place from Mathura to Gokul, and in its place they exchanged with the daughter, right, that Yashoda Maya had given birth, who was none other than the Yog Maya, the good Maya. And when Kamsa tried to kill the little baby by trying to dash her head against a stone, she slipped out of his hands and flew off and said, "What are you trying to do? Try to kill me? The one who's going to kill you is already born in Gokul." So now Kansa gets agitated. And so he's trying all means to kill Krishna. But how do we know? There are so many people who gave birth, right? And how accurate is she? When did the birth happen? 1 day ago, 1 month ago, 7 days ago, who knows, right? So Kansa was very cruel. So he said, just go and kill all the kids there. So Putana had this special duty. She was on a special mission to kill Krishna. So she flew. She flew and then she landed in the jungles. And that's why she's also known as Nishachari. She flew in the air in the night, right? And another word for Rakshasas is Nishachar. The Rakshasas are known as Nishachar because they move around when it is dark of the night. Nishachar. And the other day I was telling you about a verse which was talking about Hanumanji, and it was a hyperbole. And I was telling how his tail caught fire, and then from that he burned the whole Lanka. So the verse there says, Hanuman ki poonch mein lagan na pai aag, Lanka sigri jal gayi, gaye nishachar bhag. Gaye nishachar bhag, right? So Hanuman, the moment his tail caught fire, the entire Lanka was burned down, and the Nishachar or the Rakshasas fled from there. So that same Nishacharani is now here, flying into Gokul, where Krishna is. And she comes dressed as a very beautiful woman. She was very, very beautiful. And people generally get beauty in their lives if they have done some pious activities in their previous birth. So people knowledgeable about the Shastras, when they see a beautiful person, they will know that this person has done some really good work. So they will respect a beautiful person like that, right? Because they're coming from the Shastric background, from that line of thinking. They are saying, okay, this person I should respect because she's very beautiful. And she was so beautiful. And then she dressed as a beautiful lady. Although Putana was a demoness, which meant that, she could increase her size also. She was reputed to be 6 miles or 12 miles long. So she comes there, and as a nurse, as a dai. The nurse is the one who takes care of the child when the newborn child is there, right? So dhatri, another word. So she comes there, and because she's so very beautiful, and the villagers were innocent, and they saw this such a beautiful lady, and so they allowed her to play with the kids. And then, of course, she goes to where Krishna is, and Krishna is there lying in his bed. Yashoda Maiya has just, fed him, and he's there. And nobody stops her as she enters into the room also. Such a beautiful lady. She's just come here to give love to Krishna. And so she comes there, and she has got a very deadly poison on her breast. And her idea was that I will feed this infant, I will pretend to feed milk to this infant, and with the poison, he'll die. And the poison was so very strong. It was such a strong poison that just by touching that poison on the tongue. Now, those of you who are from our doctors or know doctors or have come across heart patients, you know that for some heart patients, the doctors say that you should keep a little pill right in your pocket over here. So that the moment you start feeling a pain in your heart, then you put that thing under the tongue, underneath the tongue. And that medicine is so powerful, and it has got such a quick absorption rate that it gets absorbed inside the whole body, and it's able to prevent death. So that it gives you a little bit of time to dial 911 or call the doctor and say that, instead of just plonking down like that. So we know, even here, we know that there are places where there are situations and there are substances that even science has discovered which have got a very good and a very fast absorption rate. So she had that. And of course, we know people 5,000 years ago were much, 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 much more advanced than what we are right now. So Krishna then, and so Putana then goes with this deadly poison. And the idea was that, you take the poison and then you will die. He will die. So she takes out, and she offers her breast to him, and Krishna starts sucking, and she's waiting. She's waiting like, oh, nothing is happening. Oh, nothing is happening. And then Krishna, and she had made herself, she starts to suck her breast. And in that process, he started to suck her life air. Now, one of the things that we have to remember is that demons have got mystic powers. Right? It's not just only the devotees will get these mystic powers. You can work the way through, be a demon in the core of your heart, and you can still get mystic powers. That's the law of the material nature. So these demons have got mystic powers, and due to that, they're able to change their shapes, right? So can you write down some examples that you know from scriptures of people who use demons, who use mystic powers to change their form, who converted themselves into something else from the scripture? Do you remember anything like that? Okay, and then what did Raman convert himself to? What did he change himself into? He changed himself into a Brahmana, right? So for somebody to change himself into a Brahmana, right, it might not necessarily require mystic powers, right? You can dress yourself as a Brahmana, shave off your head, right? So even normal people can do that, right? I don't know how Brahmana did that, but and then Khyati says that Indra also did that. Yes, and Indra came like Ahilya's husband, right? Okay. And then to cheat, yeah, yes, right. Those are two examples. And what about converting your body into a non-human body? Do you know of some example? And some person became not was a human being, a human demon in the human form, and became something else. Became a non-human body. It is from the Ramayana. Not Rama became the deer, but you're mixing two things. Deer was deer. Who became the golden deer? Who was it? Marichi. Yes, I knew Khyati would answer that. So yes, Maruchi came, right? So what happens is that when you through mystic powers, when you change from your normal position or normal constitution or normal form into some other form, then when you die, you get back to your original form. So when Krishna started sucking the life air out of Putna, who was 6 miles tall, right? She started regaining. So from that beautiful lady, she became the ugly 6 mile tall demoness that she was, like that, right? And and then of course she's dead, and then we know the rest of the story there. Now, so Krishna did a wonderful activity. A 6-year-old boy can go and kill a 6 mile tall demoness just by sucking the blood, the breast of the demoness, right? So this is a wonderful, wonderful activity that Krishna has done. And then even more wonderful activity that we hear is later on when we come to Srimad Bhagavatam and hear Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam. So it talks about that Bakasur, we know the Bakasur demon. This Putana was his sister. So there's Baka and Baki. So Bakiyam, so he's being glorified and is saying that, Krishna is so merciful that this Baki, who's the sister of Bakasura, she came Sthanakala Kutam. She put, such a poisonous and substance on her breast and, tried to kill Krishna. But Krishna is so very merciful that, because now remember, Putana is being killed by the hands of Krishna. Now, when you get killed by the hands of Krishna, what do? You get liberated. What does liberation mean? You don't go back to Golok Vrindavan. Liberation means that you will go and hang in the effulgence of Krishna. You lose your material body, but you'll hang in the effulgence of Krishna, which is Brahman. And after some time, you'll be bored and you will fall down back again to this material world, right? So this is what happens to people who are killed by the demons who are killed by Krishna. But in this case, what Krishna did, and Krishna's mercy is so amazing that he said, all right, there's an intention and then there is an action, right? So, like for example, when Krishna goes to Vidura's place, right? So Duryodhan had invited him and made good Duryodhan ka meva tyago shak vidur ghar khayo rasiya sham rasiya hamre man basiya. So this is a famous song where people do when they are offering food to Krishna, and they say that, hey dear Lord Sham, come and reside in my mind. And how are they describing Krishna? He's saying he's the one who said, I don't want the meva, the dry fruits and the koa and all that stuff from which was offered by Duryodhan. He did not accept that invitation, and instead he went to Vidura's place, who was relatively poor as compared to Duryodhan, and there he ate the shak, leaves, and that shows patram pushpam talam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadham bhaktir uparitam ashnami priyat atmana. So he's saying that one who offers me with love and devotion a little water, a leaf, a fruit, or a flower, right? So, and this is what was happening. He was looking at when he went to Vidura's home. Vidura was so overwhelmed by Krishna's arrival that Yudhira said, okay, and his wife, they both sat down and started offering the banana to him. And what did they do? They were peeling the banana, throwing away the banana, and offering the peels to Krishna. They were so bewildered and overwhelmed and overjoyed that their mind was not working properly. And they kept on doing this. And Krishna, he's so Bhaktavatsal, he kept on eating the banana peels till Vidura realized that, oh, what am I doing here? Like that. So Krishna, he looked at the intention of Vidura and his wife and did not look at the action, right? In contrast to that situation, we have a situation here where Putana came with all the wrong intentions. She came with the intention to kill Krishna. But what did Krishna do? He said, okay, in this case, let us look at the action she has done. Her act was to feed milk to Krishna, or to offer her breasts to Krishna. And so that, oh, she offered her breast, so she becomes my nurse. So when he killed Putana, she doesn't go hang in the effulgence. She instead goes back to Godhead and becomes a nurse in his pastimes in Golok Vrindavan. So this is another wonderful thing that Krishna has done. So Achintya, you cannot understand Krishna and his ways and his moods and everything. So we have got Bhagavatam and many other Puranas that are full of pastimes, full of pastimes, full of pastimes, full of pastimes. Then the question comes is that, there are so many pastimes and they seem like childlike fairy stories. Come on, where have you seen somebody 6 miles long? How can a 6-day-old child go and kill, right? So when people start looking at things like this, and in Bhagavatam, we hear about the verse, and I keep repeating that verse, in which is sthane sthita jnane prayasa udapasya namanti eva, right? So it says that you give up all endeavors to understand me. Those who give up all endeavors to understand me through intellectual pursuits, those who try to do that, and instead they just surrender unto me in whatever situation that you have, right? So in whatever situation you have, you accept the grace of Krishna in whatever place you are there. So Krishna says that you do that. And so that is why, what is the meaning of place? Now the word place can be understood in 2 ways. Just as I said, distance can also be understood in 2 ways. There's the physical distance that you can measure, and then there is also an entitlement distance, which means, for example, if I say that the distance between Delhi and Bombay is 2,000 kilometers. I may be wrong, but I'm just giving you some figures. Distance between Bombay and Delhi is 2,000 kilometers. Does it mean that anybody who's in Delhi can go to Bombay? Can everybody and anybody go to Bombay? No, right? To be able to go to Bombay, you need to have the money to be able to buy the fare, or you should have your own vehicle to be able to drive. Even if you have your own vehicle, you should have the time to drive. You should know how to drive. You should have a driver to drive, right? So suppose I buy a car and I don't know yet how to drive it. I don't have money to pay to a driver yet. So, but I want to go to Bombay. So then I am distant from that. There is a distance between me and Bombay. And what is that distance? That distance is learning how to drive. So I'm separated from Bombay by this skill of learning how to drive. So there can be distances measured in this way also, by way of, you're not entitled to do that. So sometimes in Shastras, you will see the sun, they will say the moon, Prabhupada will say the moon is farther than the sun. What does it mean moon is farther than the sun? Now that this is not right. Science says that something else, right? The sun, moon is very close, the sun is very far, like that, right? So it also depends on the entitlement, that how much more of pious activities do you have to do to reach sun versus how much more pious activities you have to do to reach the moon. You have to do more pious activities to reach the moon than you need to reach the sun. So that is why they are measuring distance in that particular way, right? So similarly, when we talk about the placement, when I say that in whichever place that you are, okay, one is a very physical and a very simple understanding of place, and that is, I am in India, so I'll be able to do devotional service in a certain way because surrounded by temples and this, that, and that, right? Versus I'm an Eskimo in Greenland, it might be difficult, right? But so I'm placed there. So the physical placement which is there, of course, that is one thing that will govern how you do your devotional service. I'm in Grihast ashram, there are kids surrounding me, I don't have any time, like that, right? So that is one place. The other place, which means now other conceptual placement, that where are you situated in your devotional service? Some people there's a yoga ladder, right? Some people are in the karma stage. They are just praying to sakam karma, praying to Krishna because they want something, and then they rise higher. Okay, they are trying to do things to Krishna, but they are not focusing on the results. Gyan yoga, right? Dhyana yoga, and then karma yoga. So these people are all situated at different levels in their devotional service. So that's also a placement, that on the yoga ladder, which rung of the ladder are you placed on, right? So depending on whatever is your place, at your own pace, at your own speed that you have, at your own speed, you should accept the grace of Krishna. So Krishna's grace is like the sunshine that comes from the sun. He's giving it to everybody. Sammoham sarva bhuteshu name deshosti na priya, right? Ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maititeshu chapyaham. So he says that, I am giving my grace to everybody, just as the radio station broadcasts to everybody. It does not distinguish that I'm going to broadcast, Cron 5 News only to Vindhyavali Mataji. I won't give it to Sukamal Radhe Mataji. It's there, right there. And if you have the right instrument to be able to tune to those vibrations, if you have the right instrument to be able to tune to Krishna's grace, then it is there available for everybody. Krishna's mercy is there for everybody to grasp, right? But different people are in a different place, and depending on their circumstances in life and their progress in devotional service, they are at a different, they will do and progress in devotional service at their own pace, at their own speed. So you go by your own speed. If somebody is advancing very fast, don't worry about that. You go with your own speed, otherwise you'll stumble and you'll fall down if you try to imitate others, right? So wherever you are, you accept Krishna's grace at your own pace. So this is what our scriptures are there. And so somebody might just poo-poo at this, story and say like, this is all nonsense. This is fairy tales and things like that. So for them, and of course, who will say that? Intellectuals are going to say that. So for the intellectuals, what happens is that Krishna's pastimes will be then explained a little bit more, and they will talk about, what, all these killing of the demons, they're actually representing something. And in particular, in the case of Putana, it is representing the fact that she is a false guru. So the pastime of Krishna killing Putana, in that pastime, it's like, don't go for the false guru. Because what did Putana do? She was not something, and she pretended outwardly to be that. She was a demoness, but she came as a beautiful lady, right? That is what the false gurus also do. So when you have shastras like this, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that very nicely. And so he said that, okay, so there are the shastras, there are these pastimes, there's these wonderful things which are there. And so today's verse, we're talking about Krishna doing wonderful things. Why does he do wonderful things? He's wonderful. But we are stupid. We don't understand that. And we are proud, and we don't want to accept it. And we think we are very intelligent. So we are saying, no, give me the understanding. Give me the real meaning. Come on, there should be something more. I'm such a brainy guy. So they say, all right, so here you go. For these pastimes, each one of them depicts something. One is a false guru, one is this, one is that. There's a whole list available on ISKCON Desire Tree. You can read it. But back to our case, this is false guru. So then they will understand that, okay, So this means there is also something more to that. And so there's an anartha that people actually are something, but they behave like something else, right? When you put on a facade on you, which portrays something which is not you, you are behaving like a putana. So we have to understand and see like, okay, so where is my putana side, of myself? And then an intellectual will understand. And by doing all these mathematical equations and correspondences and analogies, like, okay, so Bakasur means this, and Dhinakasar is representing this, and Putana is representing this. And then I understand that I am the one who's so, at some point in time, I'll understand that I am the person who's so full of anarthas. And when I realize that, then the question will arise into my mind that how do I get rid of all those anarthas that are there? And that is when the devotional service will come, because the Shastras will tell you that only way that you can get rid of these anarthas is to doing Shunvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hidya Antasto Hiya Bhadrani Vithunoti Shruhit Satam. So when you hear the Krishna Katha, it will go and remove all the dirt which is there in your heart. Om Tat Sat. With this, I will open your lines and I'll take a few minutes of reflection and some questions which are there. And let's see, how do we do that? So the participants are here somewhere. Okay, here. So raise your hands, please, so that we have a little bit of order there. And I'll take a few reflections here. And thank you so much for joining us on a Friday evening. We had other better things to do. And Varshana Mataji was the first to raise her hand. And let's see. Are you able to unmute yourself, Varshana Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Wonderful class, Mataji. Thank you so much. And Mataji, I'm really, when you said that, you see, when we pretend what we are not, this sentence I really like to read in this, that many a times we have seen, experienced people showing what they are actually not. And it becomes a problem for themselves also and for others also, because others think that the person is very rich and he can help me out, and that person who has created that facade, that also is in trouble, that now he has to create another facade, another this thing, to get out of that situation.
Yes.
So this is very important, Mataji.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Very good for bringing that point up. Yeah. So if you are honest and truthful, you don't even need a memory. When you start putting the facades, then we have to remember all that we did and what we pretended to be.
Right.
Remember, what did I tell him? My salary, I told him I earned this much. I told that one I earned that much. And you don't remember which was this. You have to have a sharp memory. If you're not lying, then, you are with the truth. You know what your real salary is. Like that. Yeah. Good point.
Thank you, Mataji.
There you go. You're welcome. Are there any other comments, questions, or reflections before we call it a day here on this class? Are you tired of the long week that you had? Looking forward to?
Finally, I learned how to send the chat, but I'm so slow. I'm so slow.
You'll get the speed. Krishna will give you the speed. Don't worry.
Yeah. But I got it today.
Yes, so. Very good. Very good. That's a big plus. Yeah, and Aruni Mataji, yeah. You find it funny that we have a Putana inside us. And the name is Putana, like Putana, Putana.
There, Putana.
Are you trying to say something, Sukumalade Mataji?
Yeah, I was just asking about the 4 main defects that we have.
Uh-huh.
So I know it covers most of them, but we have so many more defects than these, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And they will somehow or the other tie to these 4.
Ah,
They will somehow or the other, you start analyzing any defect, it will tie to my tendency to make errors and then to cheat on top of that. The last 2 are deadly combination. Tendency to make errors and then to hide it by cheating. Most of us will do.
but then what about the imperfect senses?
Yes, imperfect senses is like I can't help it, in the sense that my I'm not able to gather the right information. See, these are knowledge acquiring senses, right? They acquire knowledge. And so if I show you something, right, and any object, if I show that to you, then your knowledge acquiring senses, the eye should be able to tell the size of that object, right? But then the eyes are imperfect. If I take it far away, you will give me a different measurement. If I bring it close, you will give it a bigger measurement, right? As it comes closer, you give a big size. As it goes farther away, same thing. You move it farther away, you say it is a, like they say, a manhole, you know, the manhole. If you go
Yeah.
on the top of the Qutub Minar, the manhole looks like a 50 paisa coin. So,
I mean, the other 3 about committing mistakes and being illusioned and cheating is understandable. I did understand how the imperfect senses can be a defect.
yeah,
So,
it's a defect of, you know, not getting the right, not giving you the right information or collecting. For example, I always tell this example of, you know, suppose there's an iron table, like, you know, in the kitchen you have those steel tables, right? Now, if you take a hot shower and then you come and touch the steel, so you'll say it's cold. If you take a cold shower and you come and touch the steel, you'll say it is hot. So what is it? Is it hot or is it cold? Right? And it's imperfect senses, the skin, like that, right? And then so imperfect is okay, fine, not within a range you're not able to tell. For example, you know, I'm showing you a piece, and depending on the distance, it changes the shape, it changes the size and becomes smaller as it goes away. So one might think that, okay, so when I bring it closer, it should be good. The closer it comes, then it should be perfect. But the moment I close my eyes, I can't see the insides of my eyelids, which are the closest object to your eyes at that time. So you know, that's the imperfection is there, right? And the illusion is coming from, you know, that now these senses, you know, are that, you know, beyond imperfection. It is, an object is A and you think that it is B. It's a rope and you think it's a snake. It's a snake and you think
that's the illusion then of the imperfect senses.
Right, that's the illusion part. It is not the reality and you understand it to be wrong. Like that.
Thank you.
Archana Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, then with pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah, Mataji, thank you so much for such a divine lecture as always. Mataji, can I ask you a general question? It is not related to today's context. I was just wondering, what does the word Srimad means? Like when we talk about the holy scriptures, whether it is Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So what does this particular word Srimad means? So can you just elaborate on that?
Very good. And so what does Shri mean?
Shri means Mataji opulence, like affluence, your wealth. Shri.
Yes. And which verse talks about that?
Shri, the last verse of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Partha, the Arjuna, there is always opulence, there is always victory, there is always morality, and there is always exceptional power.
Very good, right? So opulences. And then Shri will also come soon in these prayers of Kunti Maharani, where she's talking, using the word Shri. She'll use the Shri, same as opulence, but she's also warning us all against the opulences.
Okay.
Right. So Srimad Bhagavatam is, the opulent story of Bhagavatam is the Lord. Bhagavat.
Okay. Okay, Mataji. So Mad doesn't mean anything. Shri mean, the opulence of. Okay.
Yeah, the opulent Lord.
Okay, so so opulent, the scripture,
describing
okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay.
Because that was preceded by the Vedas, right? And the Vedas didn't talk about God at all. And this one is talking Krishna only, right? Krishna only.
Yes, exactly.
Right? That verse from the second canto. So it's all talking
Mm-hmm.
about Krishna's creation, Krishna's sub-creation, Krishna's tertiary, secondary creation, and then Krishna's devotees, and then Krishna's pastimes, like that, right? Krishna's teachings, everything about Krishna or Krishna's devotees. So everything is focused on Krishna. Whereas Krishna is not very elaborately described. Krishna will come in some form in the Upanishads, right? But there also he's not very clearly, he doesn't come across like Ishopanishad, the Upanishad that we read, right? Example, it doesn't have
Yes,
the word
yes,
Krishna
yes.
at all. It doesn't have the word Krishna at all anywhere, right? The closest
Yeah.
that it comes to Krishna is where it says Hiranyamayana Patrena Sutasya Pihitam Mukham, right? That you remove this effulgence that covers you. So there's just a hint of, there's a human being behind that effulgence. It's saying, just remove this effulgence so that I can see you, right? But doesn't talk
Okay,
about
Mataji.
Krishna or his flute or anything like that, as compared to Brahma Samhita, where he's like going over Namadi Purusham. He's telling everything, where Krishna lives, who his friends are, who his cows are, how his house is made up of, where it is situated, everything he's telling about that. So Komal Radhimanti.
But was the Srimad Bhagavatam before called the Bhagavad Purana?
It's the same
It's
name.
the same thing,
It's the
right?
same thing, yes, yes. So Puran,
Okay.
actually the word Puran means history, right?
History, yeah. So
Yes, it's
was
the
that the
history.
original name and then it was became
I,
more common with Bhagavatam?
that I don't know. That I don't know which one
Because
came first.
when
Yeah.
you start reading the Bhagavatam, it always starts with like the Bhagavad Purana or the Srimad
Or the
Bhagavatam.
Srimad. Oh, that way you're saying, yeah. Because what they're trying to also tell you is that there are Puranas, right? So there are Puranas, the 18 principal Puranas. And like I was telling you, they're all they are divided into 3 sections depending on the 3 modes of material nature. So there are Puranas that talk about Vishnu, and there'll be others. And then there are Puranas that will talk about Kali, and those kind of Puranas are there, right? And then this is Bhagavad Purana. This has got nothing to do with the modes of material nature. That's why they say Srimad Bhagavatam is Amal Purana. Mal means to have a tinge of materialism in it, becomes Mal. Amal means doesn't have anything, because all that we're talking about here is Krishna. And even though we do talk about material energy, which is the 5th canto where we are describing the universe, but there also when Sukdev Goswami tells and describes this universe to Maharaj Parikshit, he tells him that this narration that I'm doing, this universe that I'm describing to you, when we are listening to this creation, this material creation, we should always hear it in the context and with connection to Krishna, that this is Krishna's creation, this is Krishna's material energy. So, and that's why they say that, don't shun the material energy also like that. Don't, prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna, right? Mokshubhi parityago vairagyam phalgu kathyate. So he says that when something is, even if it's material, if it's engaged in the service of the Lord, then you don't give it up. If you are giving it up, then it's a false renunciation. So we look at, so even mention of material objects in the Srimad Bhagavatam is done from a transcendental perspective, where the center is Krishna. So that's why this Puran is Bhagavad Puran. Bhagavad means Krishna, Bhagwan.
Krishna, yeah.
Puran. So
And Puran is
history. Yeah, Krishna's history.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So Mataji, Srimad means the glorious Krishna, or his pastimes. Like, because in Bhagavad Gita, it's the Krishna who's speaking, and in Bhagavatam, all his, the devotee and his pastimes are mentioned.
Exactly.
The kathas of. Okay, Mataji.
Right.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
Bhagavad Gita is Bhagavad means God, Geet means song. It's a song of God. It was a song because he spoke it, right? And Bhagavad Purana is about Krishna. Krishna is not speaking. It speaks a little bit in the 11th canto, but it is about Krishna, and somebody else is speaking. Sukdev Goswami is speaking, Suta Goswami is speaking. Inside Rishabh Dev will talk, Nav Yogendras will talk. A lot of people will talk. Krishna also talks to Uddhava in the 11th canto specifically, and then in the 10th canto to his father and all that. But majorly, it is about Krishna. And Bhagavad Gita.
But then why does in the 1st canto they keep saying that don't just jump to the 10th canto, it is not good, read all the 9 cantos first? I mean, I've not even reached the 2nd canto, but I'm just asking, what is it in the 10th canto that they don't want you to just jump to the 10th canto?
Right. The 10th canto is known as the Samam Bonam. and they say that, you know, for you to be able, and we are in a different position because we are coming from India where the cultural momentum is such, right? Because we know from our parents, from our grandparents, we know there's Krishna. It comes naturally to us. And also not from just our parents, we also know from our previous karmas. After all, we have done something. Actually, this was what I was thinking about Sadhana Mataji the other day when she was saying that it's very, very difficult to do this devotional service. And I was reminded of this verse, and which of course has gone out of my mind right now. Yeah. Aho batsa pachato yadgariyan yajivagre vartate nam tubhyam te pustapastu brahmanur sashnu arya. So what is it? Brahmanu churnam grananti yete. So what he's saying is that aho pachato yadgariyan. So aho means wow. Swapachato. Swa means a dog. Pachato means one who eats. So he says that if you look at a dog eater, which is like the lowest of the human being that you can have, who eats his own dog, right? So lowest of that human being, if on his tongue there is a name of Krishna, if once he's saying, if you hear him saying the name of the Lord, then you should think that he has already read all the Vedas. He has taken bath. Brahmanuchur Nam Granti Yete. He has done Veda Brahmanuchur, Brahma Uchur. He has read all the Vedas, and he has taken bath in all the holy pilgrimages. Only after doing all those things in your previous birth do you get a birth where you are able to bring the name of Krishna on your tongue, like that, right? So if we are at this stage where we are thinking serious things like I should get initiated, I should follow 4 regulative principles, I should chant 16 rounds every day, you know, like that. So we are at a different stage, right? So you will read the Bhagavatam with a lot of devotion already in your heart. Faith is already there in your heart. But what about the man on the street that we stop and we give them a Srimad Bhagavatam? So for them, Prabhupada is saying that if you straight away jump to the 10th canto, and by chance if you land in where the Gopi Geet is, you won't be able to understand that. You'll just think it's a man frolicking with other people's wives. What kind of a nonsense shastra is this? So we have to come to a level of understanding where we accept that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and we are all souls meant for his enjoyment. And how do we understand that? So it starts from the 2nd canto, it will start, okay, now you are the doubting Tom, and words won't convince you. You are the type who says, show me, show me, show me the proof. So Prabhupada can say, you don't have eyes to see God. Prabhupada can get away from it. But Sukadeva Goswami was talking to a broader audience, and there were people like that in the audience. And he was speaking not only to Parikshit Maharaj, he was speaking for everybody who was there. People from China had come there, people from Mongolia had come there, like had come to attend that event. And so he starts with, you know, says, look outside. And he describes the universal form of the Lord. Because you can see it. And then you will say, okay, there has got to be a superior intelligence. So that's why you see people talking about God, but they won't agree or accept that he's a personality, but they do understand that there is a superior intelligence. I mean, it's very quick to figure it out that there is superior intelligence. I mean, the first time you see some rain falling on you, even as a child, you know that rain is something that I cannot make. Or the sun rises and the sun sets. So you have to think that, you know, there's something going on. And it is so orderly. It happens at the right time, right moment. You know, the seasons come and they go. The plants blossom and then they give fruits and they die. So there's something that is very organized happening in this Prakriti. And so there has to be some controller. So they will take that route and ultimately come to Krishna. Like for the others, they say, okay, fine. I like to meditate. I don't want to see outside. Keep me alone. I want to go to the Himalayas. Okay, go to the Himalayas if you want to go do that. Then you meditate the Lord in the heart. Anu aniyansam anusmaredya sarvasya dhataram achintya rupam. You do that, right? So slowly, by reading all this, and then by reading his creation, his history, 5th canto, if you read just this material world, you will be so impressed by Krishna that you will begin to believe that he is God. And then you read the pastimes of his other devotees and you will know that, oh, this happened in this person's life. Oh, this happened, this happened, this happened. And you see others also praying. And then also you see stories like Chitraketu, who was such a powerful king with 1 million wives, still doesn't get a baby, and the baby is born finally and he dies, the baby dies. Then you also start getting a little bit philosophical in life to see like what exactly is going on. It's kind of things like I am at a stage where, like all that I need is some money that I can pay off this loan and I can pay off this and have something stashed away for retirement. That's my biggest thing. But look at Chitraketu, he had everything. And still, things were not right. That's when you scratch your head and say, what exactly is going on? I need to know more. So then you dig deeper and deeper into Bhagavatam. So the philosophy actually comes in the 11th canto. Even after, deeper philosophy comes there. So by the time you have gone through Lord Ramchandra's pastimes in the 9th canto, then you are ready to go to the 10th canto, where Krishna's in his pastimes of that. Like after hearing all that, right? And after you know that there is a Shirodakshai Vishnu, after you know about the entire universe, the size of this universe is 4 billion miles in diameter, 4 billion miles this way, 4 billion miles that way. There are mountains which are millions of times taller than the Himalayas. So you get that opulence, you get that, adbhut, this is like wow factor. You get to that wow factor, then you are saying that, okay, somebody is controlling this. So when you came to the 10th canto and they say Krishna was able to lift the Govardhan hill in his pinky finger, you say, yeah, that is possible. Because look at I just read about the universe, which is so much more bigger than the Govardhan hill. So you have to go through that in that fixed phase manner. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Varshana Mataji, I'll take that as the last question of the day. Go ahead, or reflection, whatever you have there.
Mataji, you just spoke about the sun and distance of the sun and the moon. And you said that Srila Prabhupada said that, yes, how do we measure the distance? According to science, moon is closer as compared to the sun. So can you kindly explain it once again?
Yes. So scientific understanding is simple. You understand that, right? You can take a inch tape and you can go all the way to the sun and measure. You go all the way to the moon and measure. Of course, they measure it different ways by the rays coming and all that. So they're able to figure out, right? We don't know whether they're accurate or not because there's no way to tell you this right or wrong. They tell you and we believe, right? So the only difficulty that we encounter is when we have to believe that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we don't believe. That's the enviousness of Krishna. Now, when the Shastras are going to tell us that the moon is further than the sun, one is that people just have faith in the Shastras. And they say, Shastras are telling it must be right. There must be some problem with me that I'm not able to understand that. Or maybe science has not yet evolved to that level to understand what exactly is he saying, right? So when Sukha is talking about these distances, what he's basically talking about is the qualification required to go to a moon planet is much more than the qualification to go to the sun, right? Now, in the 9th chapter itself of Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Trevidyamam soma paput papa yagger ishtva swargatim prapayante. So he's saying that Trevidya, people follow the Vedas and do some pious activities and they're able to go to the heavenly planets. This means that you have your qualification to go to the heavenly planets is that you should have done some pious activities. Now, the pious activities that you have to do to reach the moon is much more than the pious activities that you need to go to the sun. So that is why they're saying that the moon is farther than the sun because you need to work more to be able to reach the moon than you need to reach the sun, right? However, Shine Purne Martalokam Vishanti, when your pious credits have exhausted, even if you go to the sun or go to the moon, they are still the material planets. So when it is over, then Martalokam Vishanti will come back to this planet again. So why even go there?
So Mataji, when they say that the scientists landed at the surface of the moon, so that is not correct?
I don't know. Do you? I don't know, right? How do you verify that it was not a movie that they showed you on the television? How do you know that? It depends on your faith, right? If you have faith in the Shastras, you will know that it's impossible to go to the moon. It is impossible to go to any planet in Kali Yuga because interplanetary travel is banned. Even Narad Muni doesn't travel, right? In Kali Yuga. What to talk about, some lechas going to the moon. It's a heavenly planet, right? So it depends on your faith.
And Mataji, you said
Why
the
do you have
Srimad
to believe?
Bhagavatam and yeah.
I'm saying, why do we have
Pardon?
to believe it? Why do we have to believe everything that
Believe
anybody
because-
tells us, right? Why do you have to believe? Right? Show
Right.
me. Right, show me. What else did you do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this universe
And
is
Srimad
unknown.
and Shri
This universe is unknown. The large parts of this universe
unknown.
are unknown. Yeah.
Shraddha Mataji, I just came on Zoom because I wanted to can I just touch on what you talked about earlier about going to the later cantos? So do I understand that what you're saying is that it's okay to flip through like Canto 5 or Canto 10, because I'm not there yet. I'm only on Canto 3. So, but I'm just dying to do that. But I didn't do that because like Sukmal Mataji said, you're supposed to go in sequence. But is it okay then, since we are kind of brought up in that tradition, to flip through later cantos?
No. And I'll tell you why also. This will lead to habit formation, right? Because once you do it, once you disobey, then it gets into the samskaras that I can do it. And next time, no. Intelligence will be gone, right? Because the algorithm is already there in the mind. From 5, you'll want to jump because 5 will tell you something, and then you want to jump to 10. Because 5 will tell you about heavenly planets. Now you want to know about the transcendental planets. So you want to jump, right? That is one. And the second thing is that the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam are equated to the bodily parts of Krishna, right? So Canto 1 and 2, which Shri Komal Radhe Mataji, you were saying that I'm still on Canto 2, Canto 1 and 2 are the lotus feet of the Lord. So you are at the lotus feet
I'm reading. Yeah.
Right? So if you are at the lotus feet of the Lord, what's the hurry to leave them?
Yeah.
Right?
No hurry.
Right? So, so that is 1 and 2. Canto 1 and 2 are the lotus feet of the Lord. And then 3 and 4 are his thighs, right? And 5th is his navel. 6th is his chest. 7 and 8 are the hands or the arms. And then 9 is his neck, lotus neck. And 10 is a big canto, because you see on the face, if you have to describe a body, you need a lot of words to describe the face, because there's eyes, there's nose, there's teeth, there's lips, there's ears, and so on and so forth, right? So that's why 10th canto is the biggest canto in Srimad Bhagavatam, spans 4 volumes of the Bhagavatam, 10. And then 11th is the forehead, because there is some deep philosophical activities which are described there in 11. And then 12th canto is the crown over there. Right? So when you go to, so because we say that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we, for example, if you go to the temple and we are looking at the deity form of the Lord, there is a particular method which is prescribed in which you will take the darshan of the Lord, right? So you always start by looking at the lotus feet of the deity, and then slowly you will raise your eyes and take it to the thighs, and then to his navel, then to his chest, like that. And then, and then you are entitled to go and look at his face. So we just don't go and look at the face and say, oh, beautiful. I like the gajra. I like what Radharani is wearing. Completely forgot about the lotus feet. But the lotus feet are so very important, because there's a verse in Bhagavatam, they said, Yat pad pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktya karmashayam gratitam utagatayanti santaha tadvanna rikta matayo yatayo piruddhaha shroto gana samarana vasudevam. Right? So what it is saying is that Yadapada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. So it's saying that one who is engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, one who's engaged in that person, karmashayan, all our desires, asha, those are cut off. when you are engaged. So when in first and second canto, you're serving the lotus feet of the Lord, right? So whatever you have these strong desires that knot yourself to this human body, they will be cut off. And because this is very, very difficult thing to do, right? That is why those who are jnanis, who are not focusing on the lotus feet of the Lord, they are unable to do that. Karmashayan, right? Rikta matayo piruddaha, shroto gana. Shroto gana means waves. So these material desires come to you in waves. So shroto gana samaranam bhaja vasudevam, right? So you should always bhaj to Vasudevam. I do see there are hands that are raised over here. I'll have to take your permission. It is 8:31. It's way beyond my time. We'll pick up that, hold on to your questions and your thoughts. We will pick it up in the Bhakti breaks tomorrow, right?
Thank you, Shraddha Mataji.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
So much.
Thank you.
Have a fantastic day.